Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I'm very excited to bring you a recommendation video for some of my favorite sci-fi thriller books. If you follow my channel, you probably know that I really enjoy science fiction, and I also enjoy thrillers, or at least when they are well done and well plotted. And so, as you might expect, I enjoy when the two genres come together. And I realize I've never done a video like this before, and it was about time I did so. I think that these kind of books work really well, especially if you're in a reading slump, because they tend to be very fast-paced, very action and plot-driven. But at the same time, I love the fact that they incorporate some angle of science fiction. Often they take place in the near present day, and I do think they work really well for thriller readers. Even those that don't normally read science fiction, I find them to be very accessible. People who read a lot of heavy, hard science fiction may not necessarily pick up these books, but I've got a good variety here, and I think that there's something for just about everyone. So let's get started and talk about some books. First, I want to talk about The Fold by Peter Clines, and this is the book that follows a group of scientists that discover a way to teleport or transport people from one location to another in virtually no time at all. This is a brilliant discovery that is being funded by the government. However, they are not ready to release their findings and technology to the world. And so the government employees bring in a third-party consultant to see what is going on. They actually end up enlisting a high school teacher, and that is because he is a close old friend of this government employee, and he happens to know that while this person teaches high school English, he is actually a brilliant man. He has an eidetic or photographic memory and has just gone off the charts with all of the different testing that can be done in terms of IQ, but he has chosen not to pursue his intellect, but rather to give back to the community. And so he is kind of slumming it in the school system and just making a living. However, he gets pulled into this government situation and gets to find out what is happening in this lab, and it is so enticing that he can't help but accept the job. And from there, he starts to figure out what is going on. You find out that the scientists are hiding something, but you don't know what. They are very secretive, they are very nervous, and things are just strange, but it takes a while for the pieces to come together. So the first part of this book is almost more of a science fiction mystery, and I was so hooked in because I did not know what was happening, and the author drops lots of clues, but it takes a while before they all come together. But when they do, it is so satisfying. I was able to guess the twist just before it was revealed, and once that twist happens, the story gets much more thrilling and much more exciting. It definitely leans a little bit into horror, but for the most part, it is a thriller. This book is technically the second book in the Threshold series, but that is more of a companion series, and you can absolutely start here. Each of the books are very, very loosely interconnected through the science fiction elements, but I highly recommend this one. I think it's one of the more underhyped ones on this list, and it was just such a fun ride. I think it is just escapist and just really fun overall. I would definitely recommend it to anyone who enjoys geeky books with a lot of fun pop culture references. And I want to compare it to other social media, but I don't want to spoil anything. So trust me, if you like a lot of other geeky things in science fiction, you will love this one. Next, I want to recommend 6 Wakes by Mur Lafferty. And this is actually a science fiction thriller that is also a space thriller. So for those of you that love stories set in space, especially scary ones, this is a great one to check out. It's again more science fiction thriller than horror, but it definitely has some gruesome moments at the beginning, because the story starts out with this group of clones. There are 6 people on this ship that is out in space, and they wake up to find that their previous cloned bodies are all dead. They were brutally murdered, and they have no memory of what happened. In this future, people have the ability to extend their life through basically being replicated by clones, and so their memories are just implanted into the next clone. However, something has gone wrong, and these 6 people do not have their memories of what happened right before they were all murdered. So what the author sets up here is a closed room mystery in space, and it was just so brilliantly plotted. You get to read from the different perspectives of the characters, and you're slowly again piecing together what happened. Compared to some of the other ones on this list, there is less action, but I thought the plot and the premise itself was thrilling enough to keep me excited, and it was very suspenseful, just trying to figure out what was happening. And I definitely think this one is quite different than a lot of the other science fiction I'm going to be talking about here, so absolutely one I would recommend, and I would just love to see more people picking it up. Again, I think a lot of you are looking for science fiction with that space element, and this is that, so I would definitely tell you to go check it out. The next book I want to recommend is a little bit more well-known, but still well deserves its place on this list, and that is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I think most of us know the plot, but just in case, it is about a theme park that discovers a way to bring dinosaurs back to life using DNA and genetic technology, and so they create a theme park full of dinosaurs. And they set it up on this island. They put all these security measures in place, so what could go wrong? However, as things do, when there is corporate greed involved, there are shortcuts that are made, and soon enough the dinosaurs begin to break out and a science fiction thriller ride ensues. I think just about everyone has seen the movie, or at least is aware of it. And despite having already watched the movie, I would still recommend reading the book. I think it totally holds up on its own. It is now an older science fiction thriller, but I thought that it still reads as exciting and gripping as anything that would come out today. This was my introduction to Michael Crichton, and I do think it is a great place to start. If you're not familiar with his work, he always brings in a lot of commentary on how science needs to be used in a very careful way, and puts in a lot of warnings that we just shouldn't play with technology in a thoughtless way. And so you really get to see the ramifications played out here. And there are just so many good lines in this story. I found myself wanting to quote so many things, highlight when I was reading, and it's definitely a book I will revisit. So even if you already know the story, even if you're not a dinosaur nut, though I am a dinosaur nut, so I love the fact that there was like ferocious creatures stomping around, but this book holds up. It's well worth the read, and I just highly recommend it. It was so much fun. Definitely had some horrific moments with some harm to small children, so warning there, but if you can handle a gruesome, exciting story, this is just phenomenal. Next, I want to talk about Obscura by Joe Hart, and for those of you looking for more science fiction that is set out in space, this is another one for you. This is a story of a woman who years ago lost her husband after he had a battle with a disease that was very similar to dementia, so he slowly lost his mind. And now she has learned that her young daughter is suffering from the same disease and is also going to die unless a cure is found. She is a scientist that happens to have a focus in that field, and so she is using her expertise and her work to try to save her daughter. However, the funding for her research is going to be cut off, and she is growing desperate. Then a government official reaches out, giving her an opportunity to do a short mission out in space, and they want her to go and look at some astronauts that are showing similar symptoms to this disease. And afterwards, they will be able to fund her and hopefully give her the tools that she needs to complete her research. She is reluctant to leave her daughter behind, but it is supposed to be a short mission, and so she does agree because she really, really needs the money. And so she goes along, she goes into space, and something goes wrong. I don't want to give away more because this book is definitely one that is dependent on not knowing too much and discovering it for yourself. But wow, this book was thrilling. This was a case where I really had no idea where the story was going to go, and each twist and turn was a surprise for me. So I encourage you all to go in without looking up further reviews and just enjoying it for yourself. It definitely is a story with a lot of heart, a lot of character focus, and you do get a lot of relationship talk because it's very much about what she's willing to do for her family. But at the same time, it's thrilling. There are some exciting moments. There is danger and intrigue, and and you know that there are secrets being kept and things are not as they seem. So if you're looking for a sci-fi thriller that is set in space and is full of suspense, this is definitely one to check out. I thought it was just a really fresh story that I haven't seen elsewhere and would definitely recommend it as well. After that, I want to recommend The Institute by Stephen King. And this is a story about a group of young people with telepathic and telekinetic abilities that are stolen away and kidnapped by a mysterious government-like organization. And they are brought to a place called The Institute where there are experiments that are done on them. The story is told from multiple perspectives, but primarily from a young boy who also happens to not only have these abilities, but he is also a young, brilliant mind. And so he very much leads the charge in trying to escape. And this book is absolutely thrilling. I think when people think of Stephen King, they automatically assume that his books are horror, but this one I would definitely classify as more of a science fiction thriller. It's one of his newer books, and I really think that it is one of his best. In my personal opinion, I found it to be very engaging, very exciting, and despite being a pretty good length, I just flew through it and would definitely recommend it. This book definitely has Stranger Things vibes with a bunch of kids, and I also need to give a warning that it is at times very brutal to read because some of the tests that they're doing on the children would definitely be classified as abusive, and at times that's kind of hard to read, but at the same time you get this really smart group of kids that are trying to figure their way out of a situation, and I just found myself turning the pages, wanting to know what was happening, and it's just a fun ride, very enjoyable, and definitely one I think you should check out if you're a fan of science fiction thrillers. Now, I feel like a science fiction thriller list is not complete without mentioning Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, which, yes, is a very popular one, but at the same time, I definitely think it deserves a spot here. And this follows a man who is having a family night with his son and wife. He goes off to get ice cream, but something goes wrong. A man shows up and kidnaps him away at gunpoint, and he is knocked out, and when he wakes up, everything is different. His wife is no longer his wife, his son is no longer there, and I'm gonna leave the synopsis there just in case you have not been spoiled for this, because everyone says way too much about this book. But trust me, if you want a gripping story that has some excellent science fiction elements to it, but also has a great element of family at the heart of the story, it is a huge theme, and it's very much a story of a man trying to get back to his family and what he has to do to get there. And I just thought it was very compelling, it's very relatable, and it's just absolutely gripping. So this is one I completely love. I would personally recommend it to anyone who's a fan of the movie Interstellar. It's not the same twist or plot per se, but it definitely has that similar feel to it and similar themes all throughout it. And so if you have not read this book, if it hasn't been spoiled for you, go ahead, pick it up. And I think you will realize why everyone online has been screaming about it since it came out, because it's just such a fun read. Now, since I figure that a lot of you have already read Dark Matter, I wanted to finish out this video by recommending another sci-fi thriller that I think has a very similar feel to that one, but is hopefully a little more underhyped. And that is Here, Now, and Then by Mike Chen. And this follows a man who works as a time travel agent. He is going back to, I believe, the 1990s. However, something goes wrong and he gets stuck there. He partially loses his memory, so he doesn't really know what is going on. And because he is stuck there for a really long amount of time, he ends up meeting a woman, getting married, and having a child. Now, years later, his time travel agents come for him to rescue him and bring him home to their present day. However, at this point, he's rather attached to his family and isn't completely ready to give them up. However, once he is back in his present, he discovers that he also has a life there. And so this story is about a man torn between two lives and two families and two opportunities. And it's really a story about him having to choose between the two. And I think that if you like the family aspects of dark matter, you will really enjoy this one. Compared to some of the other ones on this list, this one is a little more toned down in terms of science fiction. Yes, it does have time travel at the core of the plot, but in a lot of ways it reads much more like a contemporary story because it is so much more family and character focused. But I thought it was a very exciting and interesting premise, and I just thought it was very well done and immersive, and it's a quick read. So if you enjoy dark matter or just simply think the plot sounds really good, I would definitely recommend checking it out for yourself. It's one that I quite enjoyed and would love to see more people reading. So that is it for this video, but I could definitely do a round 2 and do a second recommendation video for science fiction thrillers. However, I want to point out something that I'm not too proud of in this video, and that is the fact that of the books I mentioned, only one, Mur Lafferty's book, was written by a female, and I think I can do better. So I want your help to not only recommend me your favorite science fiction books, but specifically science fiction thrillers that are written by women. And I'm specifically looking for that genre because when I put out this question on Twitter asking for sci-fi thrillers by women, a lot of people came back with recommendations like Becky Chambers. But I am specifically looking for those contemporary-like stories that read like a thriller but have those science fiction elements, but I want some more lady representation. I can do better, and so if I come out with round 2, which I definitely hope to if you're interested, so please let me know, I hope to have a lot more ladies represented on that list. Otherwise, this is really fun to put together, so I would love to hear your feedback down below. Which of the books I mentioned are you most interested in checking out? And again, leave me your own recommendations here. If you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. I read a lot of horror, science fiction, thrillers, and fantasy. And please consider giving the video a thumbs up, hitting that notification bell, and sharing this around online. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.